What does it mean to have your sixth house in the sign of Pisces? Find out now by watching today's video. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabel, your spiritual rebel friend, and today we're talking about what it means to have your sixth house cusp in the sign of Pisces. We are finally wrapping up today's video series with this long-awaited video, so thank you all for your patience as you waited for me to get around to publishing this video. In today's video specifically, I am going to cover the sixth house in Pisces overall traits and needs, the health issues commonly associated with the sixth house in Pisces, as the sixth house tells us so much about our physical health, and my top 5 self-care recommendations for those who have the sixth house in Pisces, because some self-care habits are gonna work better for you than others with this placement, and understanding which ones are best for you is essential to finding daily life fulfillment and vital physical energy. And we're gonna talk about that all at the end of today's video. So if you're someone looking for practical application for astrology, watch through to the end of this video or check out the timestamps down below. And final note before we get into today's video, I'll make it fast. If you want to learn more about your unique astrological imprint and get practical application tips and tricks for learning to align with your astrological birth chart and your sixth house in Pisces, then I invite you to book a reading down in the description box below, where in 30 minutes or 1 hour, we can go deep into your soul's unique energetic imprint and how you can align to it to live the life you love and find your purpose. Learn more about readings down in the description box below, and join my weekly newsletter if you want more practical guidance to the stars. With that mouthful out of the way, Pisces sixth house, let's get into what it means to have this placement. Starting off first with what the traits and needs are of the sixth house in Pisces. And quick note that I want to make first on the topic of the sixth house in Pisces. If you're not sure whether or not you have this placement, you will most likely have a sixth house in Pisces if you are a Libra rising. If you use the whole sign house system, then you will for certain have this placement of a sixth house in Pisces as a Libra rising. However, commonly I do notice people who have also Scorpio risings tend to have this placement, and also on the other hand, Virgo risings commonly do as well. So what does it mean to have your sixth house in Pisces? Again, the sixth house tells us about our life, our daily rhythms, our daily routines, what we seek day in and day out. And those who have a sixth house in the sign of Pisces think one thing first and foremost when they wake up: how am I going to feel at harmony in my daily life? This is what I've personally noticed after living with 2 different sixth house in Pisces, one who has a Virgo rising, one who has a Libra rising. The sixth house in Pisces seeks a sense of harmony and bliss with themselves, others, and nature in their daily life. I personally noticed that those who have a sixth house in Pisces tend to need to feel a sense of connection to nature on a day-to-day basis. Now, I will also say that anyone who has strong Piscean placements in general tends to feel this call, or any just healthy human being. But overall, the sixth house in Pisces seeks a sense of harmony with themselves, others, and life itself on a day-to-day basis. So these are the people who try to move through life in very harmonious ways. These are the stereotypical dilly-dalliers of the world, I would call it. As I personally see a lot of, modern day Gen Zs use the phrase lock in a lot. And one of my favorite memes I see is always born to dilly-dally, forced to lock in. This is something that resonates a lot for those who have the sixth house in Pisces, because sixth house in Pisces is the fish. What do we think of when we think of the fish? We think of a fish fluidly flowing down the stream. And this is how these people move through their life. They don't necessarily like rigid schedules or rigid timelines to get things done. These are the people who would rather get things done on their own terms, and they tend to be very irregular with their daily schedule. If they're regular with any sort of habits or routines by default, they usually tend to be habits and routines that bring a sense of harmony. An example for one sixth house in Pisces I live with, my dad has this placement, and we always joked he had his Pisces time in the morning where he makes his coffee every day at the same time and then stares out the window and does nothing. He just looks out the window for who knows how much time and just gets lost in the clouds. On the other hand, those who have maybe less habitual routines as a sixth house in Pisces are going to ask themselves when they wake up, what do I just feel like doing? As we find with any sixth house in any water sign, these people let, to some degree, their emotions dictate their day. At least that is what they crave. And so those who have a sixth house in Pisces who have a rigid structure to their life, they may find themselves feeling a sense of burnout if they don't have time to just feel their feelings. These people will need to create time for themselves if they have a rigid structure and routine to their day to just have free space to feel their feelings and let their feelings dictate what they do. An example for another 6,000 Pisces who I currently live with, my brother, who has a bit more of a structured work schedule, he oftentimes needs to give himself a free day where he just allows himself to do what he feels like. Sometimes it's going and getting groceries. Sometimes he will research all day, I kid you not, to get lost in his head and do the research and just do what feels nice. Sometimes he gets himself immersed in a new TikTok recipe that he saw and just wants to flow with it. So in summary, the sixth house in Pisces is someone who needs harmony, fluidity, ease, connection, compassion, and creativity daily. The sixth house in Pisces tends to be someone who is imaginative, dreamy, compassionate, and creative potentially in daily life. And when I say creative, I do want to quickly disclaim that this doesn't mean that every single sixth house in Pisces is going to be a painter or someone who does pottery. This could be someone who just tinkers. An example, I would say for my brother, he does writing and poetry, or sometimes even organizes in a creative fashion for him research. Whereas my dad, on the other hand, sometimes it's tinkering with a problem with a bike. I would say these people are naturally, to some degree, tinkers. They want to do something that gets them lost in their head, and that made it look different for you. But we would call this tinkering an act of creation, which is therefore creativity. So now that you understand what a sixth house in Pisces is all about, their traits and needs, not only does the sixth house in Pisces or the sixth house in general tell us what someone needs from their day-to-day life and what they may seek, it also tells us a lot about our physical health. So for this next segment of this video, I want to talk about the common health issues that are associated with the sixth house in Pisces. So fun fact, in case you did not know, every single zodiac sign is associated with a different part of the body. And so overall, as it follows, it goes from head to toe. So Aries is the head. This is why we're known for being headstrong, my fellow Aries. And so we finish at the feet with Pisces. Now, additionally, each different zodiac sign is associated with something more internal, I would call it. So not only is Pisces associated with the feet, but it's also associated with the lymphatic system and the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, which is overall residing in the head, so there's almost this circular completion here. And additionally, I think of this personally, how I connect this and remember this is the pituitary gland has a lot to do with the ajna, the third eye chakra, and Pisces has a lot to do with this energy of ideals, dreams, and furthermore. So to start off with the more basic end, when we're talking about health issues associated with the sixth house in Pisces, we look to the parts of the body that Pisces is associated with. So a common thing you will see with the sixth house in Pisces, a common health issue that can come up is cold feet or bad circulation in the feet or feet related issues. Now I'm going to give you a bit of a further stretch of one because I find this amusing. I rarely get any forms of injuries. Thankfully, no severe injuries. But during eclipse season, when we had our Pisces eclipse, I randomly broke my toe. And at that time in my life, I was asking myself big questions regarding how am I going to fulfill my Pisces fourth house energies of where I live. Now, I know that's a bit of a further stretch, but that's just an example of how things can show up in a more drastic way that I've heard commonly before for other people. Additionally, for my fellow sixth house in Pisces, the two that I know, they experience cold feet and have hard time keeping their feet warm very often. Now, this does air a bit into commonly Aquarius territory because Aquarius rules the circulation of blood, but this is also a very Pisces related issue because it could have manifested anywhere in the body. It could have been cold hands, for example, but instead it's cold feet. So I commonly hear those who have sixth house in Pisces experiencing trouble related to their feet, where they have to maintain their feet better. For that reason, maintaining the feet, massaging the feet, grounding through the feet can be very beneficial for the sixth house in Pisces. If you're imbalanced in your Piscean sixth house, you may experience issues related to the feet somehow, in some way, in some fashion. whether that's extreme or more minute. And putting attention into your feet can be more helpful. Now, additionally, I do want to touch on, though I did not necessarily touch on this for the rest of my sixth house placements, and I'm going to do a video more in depth with more professionals who know more about physical health, because I don't want to misquote health. This is not clear technical medical advice. Keep that in mind, that with Pisces also ruling the lymphatic system and the pituitary gland, those who have an imbalance in sixth house Pisces energy could experience issues related to these parts of the body as well. The pituitary gland has a lot to do with our production of melatonin, our hunger levels, I'm forgetting the word, our metabolism, and also it has a lot to do with our creation or secretion of oxytocin. So what I noticed for those who have these placements is that they have to be better about maintaining these parts of themselves. Or, as a sixth house in Pisces, better said, needs to have more fluidity in their life. If they don't have this fluid flow of being able to follow their bliss, so to say, they may experience issues in this regard, such as melatonin, not being able to fall asleep. These people need to be very careful with how they protect their sleep because they have a stronger, maybe sensitivity with their pituitary gland, so to say. Additionally, these people may need to be more or not necessarily need, but I do notice that these people have to be more protective of their eating habits. If they're imbalanced in their Piscean sixth house, if they don't feel like they have fluidity in their life, they may experience a weird metabolism where it's maybe they have a, so to say, damaged metabolism, not feeling very hungry, or maybe on the other hand, they feel like they just don't have a consistent hunger cycle, I would call it. Again, this is a very brief explanation of a more in-depth concept of health, and I'm saying this as a disclaimer that this is not professional or deeply researched advice. So I will be doing another video series, hopefully talking about this more in depth. And finally, oxytocin. And so there can be, more simply put, hormone imbalances, I will call it, with the sixth house in Pisces. If they're not regulating themselves well, maybe they feel like their happiness and sadness levels or their feelings of connection and love are imbalanced and feeling more, so to say, depressive if they are not managing themselves well. I will say, with personally the sixth house in Pisces that I know, they can go through phases where they seem more depressive because they are not managing their needs as a sixth house in Pisces. And finally, the lymphatic system, the way I will briefly touch on this, but do your own research, is that if you're experiencing facial inflammation, I think of gua sha is the way that we commonly talk about opening up the lymph nodes and releasing our toxins, so to say, through the lymphs. And if you experience inflammation in the morning, very heavy puffiness, you may want to consider doing something like gua sha. As an example, my dad, who is a sixth house in Pisces, is obsessed with gua sha, and understanding that he was a sixth house in Pisces kind of gave me insight into why. So I would love to hear down in the comments below if these are any sort of physical health issues that you notice come up for you as a sixth house in Pisces. But with that in mind, if you're experiencing these health issues, and if you listened to the segment on traits and needs and thought, this is something I need more of in my life, but Isabel, I work a 9 to 5. I have a hard job. I have to get up at 5 a.m. I don't have time to dilly-dally or to flow and follow my bliss. So what can I do to align to this energy? I want to wrap up this video today, share 5 ways that you can best align to your needs as a sixth house in Pisces through self-care recommendations. Starting off with the first one that I think would hypothetically be easiest for a sixth house in Pisces, even with a busy schedule, is to make time for unstructured creativity or tinkering. Whether this is 15 minutes a day or 1 hour once a week, maybe you have an off day, it's very important for you, sixth house in Pisces, to feel like you have time to be fluid. Think of the fish flowing with the river. In this example, flowing downstream, not necessarily upstream. What makes you feel like you get to use your brain in a very free-flowing, non-linear way? What allows you to daydream, get lost in your head, get lost in the clouds, get lost in your thoughts? Try to make time for that at any time in your week. This might just be once a week for you, as it is, I notice, for many sixth house in Pisces that I work with, or this could be once a day for you. Maybe you dedicate the first hour of your day before you get ready to go to work to just seeing what your brain comes up with. Maybe one day you listen to YouTube, maybe you start writing, maybe you end up cleaning your kitchen, and maybe that's what feels good. But any water sixth house needs to feel like they have time to follow what they feel. And specifically for those who have a 6th house in Pisces, they need to feel like they have time to daydream, get lost in the clouds, be fluid, follow their bliss. And so they need to have this, what I call tinker time, play time, or even just what I would call creative time. So make time for creativity. This can be a huge piece for you that unlocks greater vitality and fulfillment on a daily basis as a 6th house in Pisces. Number 2 is incorporate harmony through the physical senses in your daily life in small ways. What I personally notice for those who have a 6th house in Pisces, sometimes you don't have the time to be a daydreamer or to have fluidity, but a 6th house in Pisces wants to feel this sense of just harmony around them. And I noticed that for those who have this placement, a simple way that they can tap into this Piscean energy is incorporating things like ritual items or aromatherapy into their basic tasks. In example, my brother, who I've lived with for many, many years in my entire childhood, and even as an adult years, I noticed that it makes him very emotionally fulfilled to do basic tasks like doing the dishes, but with music. Or to, for example, get ready in the morning and have aromatherapy. My dad, who again is this person who has a 6th house in Pisces, he always loves incorporating things like aromatherapy or crystals into his basic mundane tasks, things he does on a day-to-day basis. Like when he gets up in the morning, turning on a crystal lamp, like the one I have actually in the back here. I'm a 4th house in Pisces, so this is more about my home environment, but similar concept here, guys. So incorporating physically harmonious things into your basic task could bring you a sense of harmony that your 6th house in Pisces craves. So if maybe for you, it's burning sage. Maybe for you, it's having a crystal. Maybe for you, it's listening to music while you do your dishes, do your laundry, or something like the like. What is a small physical way you could implement more harmony into your day? An example of that for me that could be relevant is I love having my crystals that I choose on a day-to-day basis. I personally have my Otter Spirit Otter Spirit bracelets that I use every single day. I love the little collection that I've been able to gather. These are the Sagittarius bundle along with a, I think, green adventuring or bloodstone bracelet. You can use the code Isabel20 to get 20% off. If you feel like as a 6th house in Pisces, putting on bracelets in the morning could be one little way that you add a sense of harmony to your daily routine. But simply put, key takeaway, maybe 6th house in Pisces, you light a candle. Maybe you turn on some harmonious music. Maybe you open a window to let in some fresh air. It could be something so small that brings your 6th house in Pisces a feeling of harmony. Number 3, surround yourself with harmonious people. Now, this is an aspect of the 6th house in Pisces I don't feel like I touched on enough, if not at all. But a Pisces energy in general is very susceptible to the people around them. Just as we find with any water sign who cares about deeply connecting to others, the 6th house in Pisces may feel like they are very much affected by the people they spend their time with on a day-to-day basis. It is very important for these people to do what they can to protect their energy by surrounding themselves with people who feel good. Because deep down, these people, so to say, feel the energies of those around them. I remember working a long time ago with a young girl and her mom, who she had the daughter a 6th house in Pisces, and she felt very, very sensitive, and her mom was saying how much she's so affected by the people she spends her time with. So it's very important for the 6th house in Pisces to try their best to surround themselves with people who feel good, because Pisces leeches, so to say, off that energy. It's not that you're trying to leech it necessarily, but you're very susceptible to this energy. So maybe you can't stop being around your coworkers who are bitter and resentful all the time, but maybe you can make time to be with people who feel good. Maybe if you don't live with roommates who are very positive to be around, maybe you just shut the door. Maybe you go spend time at a friend's house who feels good. Maybe you go to a coffee shop where you just feel like the vibes of other people around you are so good. Surround yourself with high vibe people. Think of right now when I say, who are the people you feel best around? Make that a list of people and try to spend as much time with them as possible, or at least make it so that your default time when you're by yourself is around those people. I do notice for 6th house in Pisces, just being present around other people who have good energy does a lot for them. And this can be a bit more frustrating to other personalities, but find those people who allow you just to coexist alongside them and try to make it so that your daily environment fills your life with these high vibe people as much as possible. Number 4, give yourself segment intention time. I listen every morning to Abraham Hicks, and she talks about segment intending, where we are basically taking a moment to take a breath and pause and set intentions for what you're doing next. Because a sixth house in Pisces wants to feel this sense of fluidity in their life, oftentimes it can feel like they're rushing from one thing to the next, where they have to rush to work, then rush to get groceries, then go to the next thing, hit the gym. Then they oftentimes need this feeling or this moment to take a pause and ask themselves, what am I intending next? This can be very helpful for a sixth house in Pisces to recenter and gain a sense of calm, peace, clarity, and harmony with their life. I know, for example, for my dad, who works a very busy work schedule, it oftentimes helps him when he clocks out to just pause and take 10 minutes to breathe, recenter, and get back, so to say, reassess his brain. Naturally, the sixth house in Pisces wants to feel that fluid, free-flowing energy in their day-to-day life to some degree or another, in some form or fashion. And these people can really benefit from feeling a sense that they are taking a moment to pause and set intentions for what's coming next. They need to feel like they have space in their life. So maybe it's right before you get out of the car to go to work. Maybe it's before you get out of your car when you get into your driveway. Maybe it's in between clients. Maybe it's in between calls. Maybe it's in between tasks. Maybe it's in between when you're about to go out the door. Maybe you just pause as you hold the door handle or turn the lock in. Setting intentions and taking that extra breath can be extremely helpful for a sixth house in Pisces. And finally, number 5, I couldn't quite think of a title or a headline for this, but to try to make it sound simple, Pisces sixth house, try to have something every day that makes you in your good flow, or have your grounding ritual. What I mean by that and why I say this is sixth house in Pisces is very susceptible to their environment. And if you are working a job, let's say customer service, or if you work with a lot of people, or if you just do interact or have a lot on your plate every day, it can feel like they're constantly being bombarded by the world around them, and they never quite feel like themselves. And so it's important for a sixth house in Pisces to have their thing that makes them feel like they're themselves, that gets them back into their bubble, I would call it, that puts them back in their head back in the clouds, that regrounds them. So for some sixth house in Pisces, this could be a physical grounding ritual, such as literally grounding to the earth. For some, this could be maybe more of like I think of, if you're a sixth house in Pisces woman, this could be more of like I take off my jewelry, I put on pajamas, stereotype, I get all my makeup off and I take a shower right as I get home from work. For others, this could be I just sit down and do my journaling. Whatever it is, I feel like any sort of sixth house in Pisces needs some form of ritual that they do every single day to get back into their bubble. Because I think many sixth house in Pisces feel bombarded by the world and by others. And it's important for you to find a way to disconnect from the energies of others, to not feel so susceptible to letting other people dictate your mood for the day. So what puts you in a good mood, sixth house in Pisces? What makes you feel like yourself? Making time for that in a ritualistic manner every single day when you clock out of work, when you're done for the day, is very important for you to not feel like you're bombarded by the world around you. So this one's going to be up to you more to decide what makes you feel like you, but making space for that is very important. I know for my brother, it's honestly every day after he gets home, he makes himself his cocktail. He really enjoys getting to make fancy new cocktails, come up with new recipes. And so almost every day after he gets home from work or is done for the day, so to say, leaving the house, he makes himself his cocktail. And I feel like this is a ritual for him that makes him feel like himself. He's passionate about making cocktails. He's passionate about bartending. And so he loves to get to creatively, bonus point for creativity there, sixth house in Pisces, experiment with new cocktails and just sit and ground and drink his drink once it is made. So that is all I have for you on the sixth house in the sign of Pisces. Let me know down in the comments below, is your sixth house cusp in Pisces? Do you have placements in this house sign combination? Did this video resonate for you? What did I miss? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, and share this with a fellow Libra, Virgo, or Scorpio rising if you think they may have this placement. And if you want to learn more on how exactly this is affecting you in your chart, or the other factors that are impacting your 6th house in Pisces needs, then I invite you to book a reading down in the description box below, where in 1 hour or half an hour, we can dive deep into your soul's unique energetic imprint. You can book a self-care/health reading where we can go deep into what your health needs are. We could book a career reading to talk more about how exactly this fits into your career, because your 6th house also does tell you a lot about what you need from your work. And it can be really hard to find work that fits your needs as a 6th house in Pisces. We could do more of a home relocation reading where we talk about where you need to live to fulfill your 6th house needs, as our 6th house is something we need to take into account when choosing where to live, whether that's the town, country, or city we live in, and so much more. Learn more about readings down in the description box below. If you don't know what kind of reading to book an I don't know reading. I literally made this reading category for those who know that they want more information, but they don't know which category is best for them. So learn more down in the description box below. And if you like this information but need more free resources and aren't quite ready for a reading, then I invite you to join my email list down below, where I send 2 emails a week, one talking about the transits for the week in a simplified way. If you're feeling bombarded by weird energies around you and you're wondering what the heck is going on in the stars, is Mercury in Gatorade? Or secondarily, every Wednesday or so, I send out an email talking about one practical way to apply astrology to your life. So if you liked information like today and want more bite-sized doses on how to use your chart in application to your life to live a life that you love, to find your ideal career, lover, to find your ideal place to live, and so much more, join the email list down below. It's free, and I also send exclusive discounts and guides to the month ahead. So learn more about that down below. I would love to see you down there on that email list. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos breaking down the stars. I know I got a lot of requests for the 6th house in Pisces. I heard a lot of people saying they're patiently waiting for this video. So thank you so much for your patience. I would love to hear, my fellow lovely subscribers, what would you like to hear about next on this channel? What do you want to hear about? What are your questions about astrology? What are you confused by? What are your problems that you're navigating in your life? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sincerely hope you enjoyed. Once again, my name's Isabel. From my heart to yours, namaste.